This video will take you through the steps necessary to complete a bore repair job with a BOA 408i welder and EV boring bar system. First, pre-mount the support brackets to the tack base plate. Note that some setups do not require the base plate pre-mounting, and the support brackets may be directly bolted onto the workpiece. This job will require two supports. On jobs with longer spans, additional supports should be used. At this point, use the centering kit to center the boring bar. Once the cone clamps are tight, use the spanner wrench and cone tightener to fully seat the centering cones and hold the bar securely centered in the bores. Now install the support brackets onto the centered boring bar. Check the alignment of the tack plate against the workpiece and adjust if needed. Tighten the alignment and mounting bolts. Tack weld the base plate support assemblies onto the workpiece. Next, loosen the centering cone clamps and remove the centering components. With the centering components removed, slide the bar back into the support bracket bearing. If the bar does not slide through easily, the support bracket may be adjusted. The inner bearing can be removed at this point so the bar can slide through. Then reassemble the bearing and bracket. This is also a good time to recheck the support bracket mounting stud or bolt for tightness. Once the support bracket clamp has been tightened and the bearing secured, check to make sure the boring bar slides easily through both support brackets. If the bar does not easily slide and rotate in the support brackets, fine adjustments may be made by using the integrated adjuster screws. Loosen the support bracket clamp and remove the setup plug. Install the boring bar drive gearbox and tighten the support bracket clamp. Next, install the drive motor and tighten its retaining clamp. Position the boring bar and select the tool ports you will use. Make sure that you will have enough travel to complete the cut through the bore. The feed arm should also be positioned to ensure adequate travel. Do this by rotating the feed hand wheel. Tighten the feed arm bar clamp to secure the boring bar to the feed arm. Make fine axial adjustments to the boring bar, then insert the cutting tool. Check the cutting tool depth of cut for the pre-boring. Adjust the tool and tighten in place with an Allen wrench. Turn on the boring bar motor. Make sure the speed setting is on low and the feed gear is in neutral. Rotate the hand wheel slowly to advance the cutting tool into the bore. With the cutting tool taking a full cut, engage the automatic feed, then increase the rotation speed if desired. Periodically apply cutting fluid to the bore. Once the cutting tool advances completely through the bore, turn off the boring bar drive. Disengage the auto feed and remove the cutting tool. Loosen the feed arm clamp. Then slide the boring bar out of the bores being repaired. Loosen the bearing clamp and remove the boring bar bearing insert. Insert the bore welder support bracket and then tighten its clamp. Insert the bore welder drive and tighten the bore welder retaining clamp. Loosen the extension tube clamp and telescope the welding gun to the bore you are working on. Once in position, rotate the welding gun and confirm that it is centered in the bore. If additional centering adjustment is needed, the bore welder support may be fine-tuned due to its two-piece eccentric design. Position the welding gun at the end of the bore or starting point, then tighten the extension tube clamp. Attach the MIG wire feed and remote start-stop pendant conduit to the welder and engage the bore welder clutch. Attach the AC power cord to the bore welder drive. Adjust the welding gun rotation speed as per the chart on the front of the bore welder drive. Attach the wire feed conduit to your MIG wire feeder. Check all connections, then turn on your shielding gas regulator and power supply. Feed the welding wire through the conduit until it emerges out of the bore welder gun. Trim the excess welding wire at the bore welder gun nozzle. Attach the ground lead to the workpiece and welding power supply. Turn on the bore welder gun rotation with the bore welder switch. Then turn on the welding power supply contactor with the handheld switch. Inspect the weld bead and adjust the speed if necessary. For the initial weld bead to be placed at the outer edge of the bore being repaired, use a copper or brass backing plate and run the bore welder with the feed clutch in the neutral position for the first weld gun revolution. Bore repair systems boring bars are chrome-plated and resistant to weld spatter. However, it is a good practice to cover the boring bar and drive unit with a flame-proof material during welding. Anti-spatter spray may be applied to the exposed boring bar.
Yep.
When the bore weld is complete, shut the system down with the remote weld switch and the rotation switch on the face of the bore welder. Release the clutch lever and slide the spindle to remove the welding gun from the bore. Loosen the welding gun extension clamp and retract the welding gun. Remove the power cord, then loosen the mounting clamp and remove the bore welder and center mount assembly.
Okay.
Insert the boring bar support bearing cartridge, then slide the boring bar back through the bearing. Tighten the mounting clamp. Check to make sure that the bar still slides easily through the bearing. Rotate the feed wheel by hand to reposition the feed arm to allow full travel of the cutting tool through the bore. Insert the cutting bit into the appropriate tool port and secure with the set screw. Leave the port closest to the bore free for use with the internal diameter snap gauge to measure the ID after the rough cut. Tighten the feed arm clamp, securing it to the boring bar. Make final adjustments of the cutting bit to ensure a proper rough cut, then tighten the tool set screw. Adjust the axial position of the cutter so it is outside the bore being machined. Turn on the boring bar motor. Slowly rotate the manual feed wheel to advance the cutting bit to the bore. Apply a cutting fluid, such as Tap Magic, to the bore. Once the cutting bit is taking a full cut within the bore, engage the automatic feed lever and adjust the rotation speed as necessary for the type of cutter being used. Continue adding cutting fluid as required. Once the cutter has fully advanced through the bore, turn off the boring bar drive. Place the feed lever in the neutral position, then rotate the hand wheel to retract the cutting tool and the front tool port to the initial starting position. Insert the K9210 ID snap gauge into the front tool port. Using the manual feed wheel, feed the bar forward until the gauge is about 1/4 of an inch inside the bore. Release the gauge thumb screw to allow the gauge to snap into the bore's internal diameter. Then retighten the screw. Retract the bar to access the gauge. Remove the gauge and measure with a micrometer or calipers. Use the K9312 tool adjuster to adjust the tool bit for the desired final cut diameter. Turn on the boring machine and begin the final cut. When the final machining is complete, turn off the boring bar and retract the cutting tool back to the starting position. The ID bore gauge is used again to check machining accuracy. Insert the bore gauge back into the front tool port. Turn the feed wheel on the boring bar drive and place the gauge about 1/4 inch inside the bore. Release the thumb screw, then retighten. With the feed wheel, retract the gauge from the bore. Remove the ID gauge from the bar. Perform the final measurement of the bore gauge to verify the proper diameter of the finished bore. For more information about bore repair systems, equipment, and accessories, contact us today.